Explain that real quick.
So wrestling is a business that thrives off of storylines, character development, and the babyface and heel are the core components of the characters that are played in these stories. Really, it's the protagonist and the antagonist.
Exactly.
The good guy, the bad guy. But wrestling is one of those industries where it's taken the sport of wrestling and then added storylines and character development to the product to create something that is
All right.
Yo, are we back?
We are back
we live?
in the car.
Are we live?
We are actually live with Founders Drive.
Live with Founders Drive, another episode, another drive where we dive into the world of founders that we admire, founders that we respect, also just founders that are successful that we want to learn more about. And we take what we've learned about them and we apply it to our own journey. And we're just open sourcing it so that way you might be able to do the same. So subscribe, follow along. We're going to be jumping into a whole bunch of different founders. If you have any recommendations, leave those in the comments and we'd be happy to look into that. But yeah, why don't we jump into some updates?
Yeah, I think it's funny. We were just talking about this kind of before we were on here. And yeah, man, some of the updates that we pushed out recently have been just, I feel like, game changing, right? Like the whole try as guest so that people can get into the platform, see what the communities are offering, see what people are posting about, and try our AI all at the same time, like without an account.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's
and then
huge.
Also the whole guest checkout.
Yeah.
You know, where you don't actually have the friction of saying every single customer has to have an account. With an email, we can deliver those digital products to your customers.
Yeah, it's really been, so this week was definitely more maintenance, bug fixing, making sure that everything's working correctly, those performance updates. But it was all around what you're talking about, those features that are opening up the platform to make it just more accessible. We want to just remove as much friction as possible, but that just comes in stages and iteration. And so it's definitely something that's worth checking out, specifically if you're somebody who wants to become an entrepreneur, wants to start a business, if you're somebody who hasn't been able to find work, or you're just sick of your boss or your 9-to-5 job and you want to just explore different avenues without taking a full jump in. This is the product to do it in, and it's really easy to check shit out. It's really easy to experiment, specifically from what you were talking about with the guest checkout features and the guest chat features and all of that. So it's pretty exciting, man. I think that we're really building something that's a useful tool, especially in a world where all of the AI stuff is really like, hey, here's a chat feature. Like, if you think that the Muse chat feature on our platform is just that, completely missing a lot of the functionality. A lot of it is made to be useful. It's made to make you more intelligent, more aware of the products you're putting out. What's kind of cool, not to jump on this not to belabor this, but when you create products on our platform, the AI assistants and the AI agents on our platform are aware of that. And so you could be posting in one of the communities, and then you could go and have a conversation with Muse. And then you could say, hey, Muse, I want to create a digital product. And it can use what it knows about you to help you create a digital product, which is something that I haven't seen on many platforms.
I think the biggest change there is the fact that with all these other platforms, you have to supply the context.
Yes.
You have to be worried about, what does this AI know about me? Like, what does it not know? And how do I manage that memory?
Yeah.
And with us, we kind of do that for you. Everything you're getting and putting into the platform, we're going to use as context. So Muse is smarter and smarter the more you use the platform.
Exactly. And hopefully it makes you smarter and smarter and richer and richer.
Yes.
So definitely worth checking out. Those are some updates. But why don't we get into the founder of this week that we're exploring?
Who's that this week?
Some people know him by his walk. Some people know him by his antics. You probably know him because he's on the thumbnail of this video. But we are jumping into Vince McMahon, the eccentric 80-year-old billionaire that revolutionized the sports entertainment world.
Specifically, the wrestling entertainment world.
Wrestling, yes.
Guy is incredible, just in terms of the roller coaster of ups and downs he's been on throughout his life.
My God.
And
man.
the businesses that he's built.
Yeah.
You know, specifically like the WWE, and taking that, you know, from really what it, you know, it was like kind of Midwest entertainment and just like really disparate places around the U.S. that had a little bit of like of wrestling, you know, culture. He kind of brought it all together under one umbrella.
I mean, yeah, so we're definitely going to be jumping into some of those key landmarks throughout his career and how he nationalized wrestling and then took it worldwide. But kind of going back to just Vince McMahon and his origin story. And even like how we really stumbled on him as a business person, because of course we grew up watching wrestling.
Exactly.
I mean, it's such a big part of so many 90s babies' lives.
Yep.
Like, I can even think back to growing up and seeing kids in the neighborhood pretending to be different characters and like taking it a little bit too far. Because we thought what we were seeing was real. We didn't realize that it was fake. Or staged, I should say. It wasn't completely fake, but I just remember like it just played a core part of our history, and it's also been like the starting place for so many big talents today. Like
True.
The Rock, right?
Yeah, one of the biggest filmmakers or film stars now. You know, John Cena, same thing.
Yeah, and I think like I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that there's so much to the wrestling business that carries over into other avenues of life, and not even just in the movie and entertainment business, but also in politics, like Jesse Ventura.
Yeah,
Trump.
That's true.
Like, those are people that have been in the WWE rings and have, if not explicitly, implicitly carried over some of those strategies into like the real world to great success. And I say real world tentatively because a lot of people say there's this whole term that everything is wrestling. Like everything is
show business, baby.
It's show business, but like specifically wrestling, like even Rick Rubin's another person who talks about this idea of wrestling being just something so unique and so true, despite the kayfabe fabrication on top of it. But we'll get into that stuff in a bit. Dialing it all the way back, Vince McMahon, born in 1945. His dad left when he was young, and he lived with his mom, was in an abusive household, and he talks about how when he first met his dad, it was like he had this glow to him. He met him, and he was like, oh, my dad's a promoter, Vince McMahon.
You met him at like 12, too.
12, yeah.
Like, it was a while before he actually got that connection where he then had a father, you know, figurehead to then look up to and say, oh, wow, there is a lot more to this than just, you know, the abusive relationship he had with his stepdad.
Yeah. And so after some time, he eventually went into the business and went into the family business, and he's a third generation promoter.
Yep.
And so it's not like he's the only person that invented a lot of these things. He learned a lot from his dad, and I guess that's, you know, a pretty cool redeeming story that he was able to reconcile with his dad after him not being there for the first 12 years and then enter into the family business and take it to new heights. So
I think a lot of that also talks like to the fact that having that kind of like father figure or, you know, model of how you can act and what you can actually do or accomplish is so powerful.
Yeah.
He didn't have it until 12, but then after 12, I think something kind of snapped and it was like, oh, like I'm just going to go all in on this and really make sure, because I feel like, he said this too. He was like, yeah, like my dad could do no wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happened. He was like, yeah, he could do no wrong. I think a lot of us, I think a lot of us had that same interaction with like our, you know, people in our life that are figureheads and like, you
if
know,
not like our real dad, like a father figure or some type of figure that you could look to and you admire and you're like, I want to be like that. So you have to model your behaviors and your ambitions after that.
It's important to have that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, just make sure that it's hard because at a young age, you don't have the ability to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go get that. You kind of have to have it, you know, put in your life or be a part of your life. But a pivotal moment, because if you didn't have that, there's no way the entire rest of the story would even be told.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things where is it nature, nurture, is it the environment, or is it in you already to take things, or to have this brain where you take things to new heights? And what's interesting is, you touched on this a little bit, is that before Vince McMahon Jr., the wrestling world was very regional.
Exactly.
It was very territorial, and everybody was okay with that. Nobody was competing.
Right.
And so I think it was like the 70s when he first started getting into the family business, and he was working promotions under his dad, and he worked there for the better part of 10 years. But when he finally bought the WWWF, I think it was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
Yep.
He eventually shortened the name to WWF. And when he finally took it over, he got very aggressive in terms of wanting to expand his group, and completely overlooked the regional boundaries.
That was something I know his dad didn't like.
No, exactly. I think he said that if his dad knew what he was going to do, he wouldn't have sold him the business.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing, because before, there's this, they used to go from region to region, and there's this concept in wrestling of baby faces and heels. And
explain that real quick.
So wrestling is a business that thrives off of storylines, character development, and the babyface and heel are the core components of the characters that are played in these stories. Really, it's the protagonist and the antagonist.
Exactly.
The good guy, the bad guy. But wrestling is one of those industries where it's taken the sport of wrestling and then added storylines and character development to the product to create something that is just trance-like, hypnotic to the viewers. And it kind of goes to what we talk about a lot on this podcast, is how powerful stories are.
Yeah, and I guess, like, for anyone who couldn't put those two and two together, the babyface is the protagonist.
Yes, it's the good guy.
The heel is the bad guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, without getting into the weeds of it, there's people that go from good guy to bad guy. They call that turning heel.
Yeah.
There's people that are baby faces, and they have different terminologies there. But at the core of it, that's where the wrestling business really thrives, is in the storytelling and the character development. And so that's like that's a core component of what they would, of like, and that's actually been a part of it for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And that's like the entertaining part of it. But what they used to do back in the day is they would go from region to region, and sometimes when you would go from different regions, like, they would swap out the heels as they were going to a different region. And that was just the nature of the business. There was no competition. What he introduced was this aspect of competition between regions, and he started buying out the best characters in the different regions and saying, no, you guys should all come work for us. And then he made some national media deals where the WWF was being syndicated in different regions, and that of course didn't come without pushback, but because he was so brazen in doing it and being the first person to do it, he had a wide open path that allowed him to really carve a footprint for the WWF.
It's funny.
Now WW.
Now the WW. It's funny, that reminds me of just a short little snippet from Peter Thiel, where he's like, competition is for losers. Even though those are not his words, I think it was the Wall Street Journal like took his article or took his book and then had that as their own title, competitions for losers, where he's a very big proponent of, like, find your monopoly where you don't have to compete at anywhere, and just like drive forth that kind of situation. And I think Vince was doing a lot of that, where it was like, all these people are so like happy, they're complacent kind of in this regional setup. If I was going to make this a monopoly or a complete, my one organization, everything under one umbrella, I mean, yeah, there were people that were upset about it, but he was getting revenue in from these streaming services. I mean, he was making deals all over the place.
The TV networks.
Yeah, he was getting deals all over the place to like continue building his empire, to the point where almost nobody could compete.
Mhm.
You know, I know like the WCW was beating him on Monday night ratings for a while, but eventually he was like, no, we're going to turn this up to 11 and
Yeah, and that
just buy them out eventually.
yeah, no, and that was a whole other thing, which led to some really good competition
Yeah.
between Ted Turner and the WCW with what he had going on. But before then, and after the territory system and breaking that down, which again was very fractured
Mhm.
in not only like just the organization, but just the talent. Like you have Hulk Hogan in one area, then you have Randy Savage in another area.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite, I guess, like promoters of the sport, of the
One of your favorite wrestlers?
I think promotion.
Okay.
Like wrestling, obviously, like
Yeah.
his performances were great,
Uh-huh.
but his interviews before and after a match leading up to WrestleMania are some of the most iconic, for me at least,
Yeah.
clips of the WWWF or the WWE,
Mhm.
like of that time period.
Yeah.
And that, like, his monikers of like, oh yeah, like stuck in my head for so long.
Yeah, I mean, all these people are memorable. They're memorable characters,
Right.
and I think there is strength. Like there is obviously the business aspect of it and the monopoly aspect of it, where you're basically aggregating and bringing all of these different regional talents under one roof. But I think there's also just an entertainment value of it. Like when you have
100%.
an Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan
Yeah.
under one umbrella, it's like it makes for more entertaining content.
Which is interesting because it'd be like, you know, the Lakers buying out all the talent and just being like, we're gonna play against ourselves.
Or like multiple leagues. Like imagine
Sure.
having the NBA and then like another like the NBA and the ABA. Like that was actually a real thing.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they merged those together, and now we have a much more cohesive, better product. However many years later, after those two leagues were brought together.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty much a whole bunch of regional wrestling leagues that were brought together under one umbrella. And I think it was just like, it was huge. It dismantled the regional territory system, and it's defined what wrestling actually is today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's dope. But another thing that he did in the 80s was he launched the first WrestleMania.
Yes,
And
that
so
was
that's-
like a huge storyline.
Mm-hmm. And that's a theme with him, is on the marketing front, especially around distribution. It seems like that's where his instincts are really honed. Storytelling, character development, and distribution he's always on the cusp of it. I mean, even later, you see that he gets into the streaming network and has an all-in-one streaming service
Before anybody else.
in 2014.
Yeah.
And so everybody else was late to the party. He was able to bundle that up, sell it to Peacock for $1 billion plus. And so there's different paths, you know, to get to that.
It's funny because he did that
billionaire
and then
status.
flopped right over to licensing.
Right?
He was like, okay, like we don't have to host this, but if you want our content, you're still gonna pay for it.
Right. So he's very attuned that way. And it's just a theme that we see over and over again in the decisions that he makes as a person that's in charge of the brand and also developing it. And so WrestleMania was one of those instances in '85 where he made a huge bet on pay-per-view.
Yep.
Hyped it up, promoted the hell out of it, and it was a huge success.
And just to explain that, WrestleMania is kind of like the Super Bowl for
Yeah,
wrestling,
yeah.
right? Where there's a bunch of matches that kind of go up to this final match where there's a champion and then there's a contender, right? But basically it's the Super Bowl for wrestling.
And one thing that he did at the time is he associated it with celebrities at the time.
Yes.
Mr. T. And it's kind of funny because in the last episode we were talking about Nike's branding
Right.
and what they did. And this is around the same time, '85.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan was drafted in '84, played the '84-'85 season. That was his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that '80s seems like a time where people started realizing the power of a celebrity endorsement and a celebrity deal.
It's funny because like the WWE now is like, they're not just wrestlers, they are celebrities.
Yeah.
They're kind of one and the same right now.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the start of that path.
Yeah, yeah. Like associating with mainstream people. So
Yeah.
they associated with Mr. T, what was it? Like Cyndi Lauper, and then other celebrities outside of wrestling. And
Trump was even there at one point. Like, that was later on, but
right. But the same idea where there's these other brands that have a lot of viewership, have a lot of staying power, and then bringing that into the wrestling sphere just amplified wrestling's footprint. And it also, I think, showed the model for other different sports, like combat sports.
Yes.
When we look at boxing, and boxing, I think, like, of course, has always been something where you have different promoters, and that's always been an aspect of the sport. But doing it through pay-per-view,
right?
I would imagine, and I'm not like, I mean, I would have to get checked on this, but I would imagine that wrestling fed into how we're seeing a lot of these fights being hyped up today.
Oh, I mean, it's a clear indication of the step into MMA too, right? Where it's like, okay, like boxing is great, but I kind of want to see full body contact. Let's, do everything that you can, in your abilities wise to take the other guy down. And I think that was in part because, like, wrestling, they started introducing stuff like chairs, cage matches, barbed wire. Like, there really is an entertainment factor to it, but I think it also speaks to a lot of that, I don't know what it is, but like an innate human want or need to see people fight. There's something about it that I think definitely paves the way for what we see today, which is like a lot of these, I guess, like 1v1 style companies or, events or sports that are broadcasted, and, you got people like the Paul brothers making millions of dollars.
Wrestles now.
Exactly.
Right.
He's in the actual WWE, and then his brother, obviously Jake, doing the boxing. Pay-per-view, they're huge into that stuff and making tens of millions of dollars doing that.
And that was a big thing with the playbook that the WWE, formerly the WWF, ran back, like, after that WrestleMania, is these different pay-per-view events getting on nationally syndicated.
I think that was really right when we started doing that. Like, right when we started watching it in the 90s.
Yeah.
Was like after those first couple of WrestleManias, I remember Vince coming out being a heel.
Yes.
Like, it's stuck in my mind where I'm like, oh, this is the boss. He's playing the boss, but he's a heel in his own organization.
I mean, it's
which
so
is interesting.
Crazy how long that's been around and how long they've been doing this, because he came out with the Vince McMahon character, the heel character, with like the walk, the billionaire walk, and the evil Mr. McMahon persona. After he got into this whole dilemma with one of the wrestlers, I think he swaps them out at one point. It was Bret Hart.
Yeah, and Bret the Hitman Hart.
And something, I forget the details, but there was this, they called it I left a note about it. They called it shoot, let me see if I can pull it up right here.
I remember it being a huge event.
Yeah.
Where he basically screwed him out over a championship.
That's what it was, right?
And it ended up being where you kind of got introduced to the fact that there is a character in Vince. Like, he's now being introduced into the canon of the entertainment world instead of just being in the back office. Like, and it wasn't just him. It was his kids too. Yeah. Stepped up in a major way in the business, and they still are today, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, that interesting part of like, oh, I'm going to introduce myself into the storyline. And then obviously the fact that his character was like 95% him.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the whole Bret Hart thing is, so he got screwed out of winning a championship, and he was pissed about it. Vince apparently said, okay, you can hit me. And Bret Hart knocked him out cold. Like, just punched. And it's so weird because we've been talking about these traditional businesses, or not traditional businesses, but these more buttoned up businesses.
I don't know my stop sign.
And this is just so different.
Oh yeah.
Like, imagine Mark Zuckerberg being like, okay, you can hit me.
Which he is going into MMA. He is trying to do that.
I guess that there is some truth to that.
But yeah, it's not something you normally see ever. Bezos isn't doing this,
right? Because I made a call that you didn't like. You can. So he did. He clocked him, and it's on the documentary where they're both talking about it. He's, I think, said that there was more. Bret Hart said there was more of a scuffle, and they kind of got into it, and then he clocked him. Vince was like, I went up there and I just let him hit me. But everybody was like, conclusively, he was out cold.
Yeah.
For a couple minutes. He was like, I was seeing stars. But after that is when the evil Vince McMahon character was born. And this was in the late 80s. So this is before both of us were born.
Right.
And that's why I'm kind of going back. I'm like, wow, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, he's 80 now.
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
80 years old right now.
That's wild. I remember distinctly watching him walk out in a couple of WrestleManias doing the original Conor McGregor walk, you know, the billionaire. Just, that was so pivotal to me too, just watching that stuff kind of play out, because when I was that young, I didn't realize what was happening, and to see the boss come out and do that stuff, unlike anything I've ever seen before, and that was awesome.
I mean, we were born with him as a character already.
Exactly.
And it was in the whole aspect of the blurred lines between reality and fiction is a core component of wrestling.
Which is, you know, going back to the story of like getting screwed out of a championship, it's like the stuff's scripted.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So being upset that maybe the script didn't go to plan, or that, you know, something else kind of came up in terms of inside the match, and then being upset about that, it's like, dude, we'll just script something else. Like, we'll just continue moving on. But it's so real and visceral that it's like, no, we're going to fight about it. We're going to fight about a script that didn't go, you know, the right way.
The thing that's so interesting is it had this huge impact on today's entertainment, specifically reality TV.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could call him the architect of reality TV in the way that they script moments, but they leave enough room for people to
imagine,
but I was going to say improvise.
Oh, okay.
And then also,
that's interesting.
And another thing is enough room for people for human nature to come out. If you even just put certain people in a room, we already know personalities. Just think to a family dinner, right?
Yeah.
Or the holidays. You put certain people in a room, things are just gonna happen.
That's interesting.
For better or worse.
Yeah, what I was thinking is like, and I think there's a great point there, because you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
You can't script out every single punch, hit, kick, and tap out. And if something does happen, you have to be light on your feet. So that's something that everyone should take away from, you know, just being in that world. But what I was thinking you were going down is like the anticipation of like setting up, let's say, the road to WrestleMania, and then I have to imagine like, oh, who's gonna beat who? You know, what's gonna happen in this fight?
From a viewer's perspective.
Exactly. People are starting to take bets on like who's gonna win.
Right.
It becomes this thing where people start hyping it up, just like you do every Sunday. Oh, are the Lions gonna win this week? It's like such a very interesting way to really spark the imagination of the viewers to get them invested before any action actually happens.
Yeah. And so there's a saying that in an interview that I saw with Triple H, he attributed the Vince McMahon to always saying this, but it's just a broader term in general, or saying in general, is perception is reality.
Ooh, I like that one.
We used to argue about that with coworkers all the time, or I did at least, because I would talk to some people, they'd be like, perception isn't reality. Reality is reality. It's objective. But of course, there is an objective aspect to reality, but being people, we're subjective by nature. And so whenever we interpret something, we interpret it through our filters.
Right.
And so that perception aspect is something that we can never get rid of.
Right.
And I think even now with technology, it's proving that even more and more, is how there's this predictive aspect to how we process the world. And so when we tell stories, that plays into how we process the world and how we perceive the world. And so there's a saying, it's he who controls the story controls, I think it's the dollar, or there's some, but it's the showing how powerful story is.
Yeah.
I think Steve Jobs might have said that after he left Pixar. I mean, that's something that people forget a lot, is that he went and after his first stint at Apple, he left and helped grow Pixar into the company that it is, and just revolutionized how movies are made and how stories are told.
Yeah,
and
the whole like perception versus reality. I mean, I just finish that point if you want.
Well, I was just gonna say that it was like, it just shows the power of story, and you can't remove that from Steve Jobs, because when he came back to Apple, storytelling was such a core component. It always was, but helped elevate Apple to the brand that it is today. And we see that in different industries, specifically wrestling, which we're talking about right now. But,
even Apple, like it, at some level, is scripted. Their product launches, their features, at some level, is scripted, right? But then the whole perception versus reality thing. If you know that the WWE is entertainment and it is scripted, but people still get so into it.
Yeah,
they're so invested in that story.
Yeah,
where you can't really tell if they're like, as a fan, you're not gonna like put on a show for other people. Right. You're in there enjoying it. Well, and it's that reality that people are like, it's obviously the perception of the story that's happening in front of them that gets them so excited. So there is a lot to say around like the perception reality kind of dichotomy there.
A huge thing. And then like how much storytelling is able to influence perception and our perception of things.
Yes.
And I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole.
We have.
but it really is like just it's a theme that is going to continue to keep coming up. So it's like we don't have to go on a whole segue journey to go and explore how powerful stories are right now. But going on this whole, timeline of decisions that Vince McMahon made that were pretty integral in the success of the business is in 1999 he went public.
That's true.
I don't know if they're still public, are they?
He's not part of the business right now. I know that.
Yeah, that was a more recent thing, though.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but they went public, and that IPO gave them a ton of cash that allowed them to expand the brand even more.
Yep.
And again, taking the WWE public at the time is a huge move. Especially considering that it started off as a business that was more regionally focused, and taking it to this place where it's a worldwide brand at this point is huge. And this is skipping over the whole WCW beef that they had with Ted Turner and who's my man that was actually in charge of the WCW at the time.
Oh, geez.
It was like Eric.
I know the face.
Yeah,
I can see the face because I remember watching it.
Yeah, and he was talking a lot of smack. He was like, "Hey, we were kicking their ass."
And they
were 83 weeks, 84 weeks.
Mondays in a row, because Monday night was
the Monday Night Wars is what they called them.
The big time for wrestling. Was like, okay, Monday night wrestling's on.
Yeah,
and it was all about ratings. Everything on TV is, and they were whooping them for a while.
And that led them to move WWE into the Attitude Era.
Yes.
Where the content became more adult themed and the storylines became more intricate. People call it they're like it's a soap opera.
That's what I started watching, honestly.
Yeah.
Was in that Attitude Era, where it was like, okay, this is a little bit more adult. My parents weren't too happy about that, but
it felt like, I mean, as a younger kid, it felt like you were kind of peeking behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And then hearing these storylines, we didn't really understand half of the storylines that were happening being younger kids, but it felt so like the Attitude Era. It felt like it was like you were doing something bad or like you shouldn't be watching.
Right. And that was a pull for so many people.
Yeah.
Of like, oh wow, this isn't going to be just like a regular wrestling. This is going to be stuff that's going to have drama in it, more drama than they had previously. And so that was a huge shift.
Yeah. So that was a really interesting era of the WWE, because when you think about how they consolidated all of the regional markets and then they finally had a competitor coming against them that was backed by a billionaire and Ted Turner, it put him on his heels a little bit. And there was times where they talk about this in the documentary. There was times where Vince McMahon was framing the battle using his marketing and promotional acumen to make it seem like the WWE wasn't losing, or that it was like a David versus Goliath thing. And he even like the people that he chose to talk about, the Ted Turner versus the other guy, I can't remember his name right now, but it was on purpose to make it seem like that he was the good guy, that he was the babyface in the situation, and that Ted Turner and those guys were the heel.
Exactly. It's all storytelling.
So much of it is. There's a funny anecdote, not a funny one, but it's something that I think is worth telling to just show the power of the positioning and the characters. Is when The Rock was first introduced into the world of wrestling, he came in as a babyface.
That's right.
He came in as the good guy. His dad, Rocky Johnson, was also a wrestler.
Yep.
And so when he came into his role as Rocky Johnson's son, nobody was feeling it. Everybody was booing him. They're like, this guy is trash. He's lame. He like inherited all of this. Nepotism, baby.
Yep.
And the details you can go and look up, but eventually they positioned him as a heel.
Yes.
And that's where the modern Rock came from. The one who's like, it doesn't matter what your name is. Or the Rock where he's like, do you smell what the Rock is cooking? Like,
yeah, with the eyebrows,
the eyebrow raise, all of that stuff.
Yes.
That was born out of a decision to turn him heel.
Yep.
There was also the character of Steve Austin, who was the kind of anti-hero that, he was the badass that was also the good guy fighting against the evil Mr. McMahon and,
well, he was that blue collar worker.
Right.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, drinking a beer, lifting on the job site, and fighting in my spare time.
Yeah. and sticking it against the man.
Exactly, but that blue collar kind of storyline, I think, played a huge part into a lot of people rallying behind that character.
Yeah.
And eventually, Steve Austin himself.
He's like hugely relatable.
Yes.
Hugely relatable. So this kind of rolls into how they launched the WWE Network, which we were talking a little bit about earlier.
Yeah, that's the modern day, what they have now.
And it was an early move. This was them moving away from traditional pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they sold that for over $1 billion. And then now they're really pushing beyond America and trying to get more active online, internationally. What was this? In 2023, WWE merged with the UFC.
Right.
Under the Endeavor umbrella to form the TKO Group Holdings. And Vince McMahon became the executive chairman, effectively ensuring his role in shaping the next era of combat sports and sports entertainment.
Didn't last very long. It didn't last very long.
No.
Unfortunately.
You want to go into that?
We can just touch on it a little bit. There was some allegations, I think. I don't know if was he indicted on these. I'm not sure. But just the fact that obviously you have men wrestling. You also have women wrestling. They have divas, and they have very, very, like we talked about the Attitude Era being much more adult. It started then when it was like, oh, we can show women doing the same thing with the acrobatics, the wrestling moves, and then also, skimpy clothes, stuff like that, which pulled in a certain amount of audience members. Definitely some allegations were made, and I have to look up the court case if he actually was charged or indicted on these things, but one of those wrestlers who was working in the corporation at the time had alleged that he was basically sex trafficking her to not only himself, but other executives in the company. And so following that kind of allegation, or at least lawsuit, they asked him to resign and step away from the business entirely. And that was, recently, actually, in the last 2 years.
And I think his daughter ended up stepping up, and then Triple H.
Exactly. So now it's his daughter who's now married to Triple H, which is also an interesting story of you're in this wrestling world your entire life. You get brought up, and your dad's Vince McMahon, and then you fall for a wrestler. Right. It's a very interesting story. Yeah. But yeah, now they're running the whole thing, and he's kind of stepped back, and he's still a billionaire. He was able to cash out, and he's still doing very well for himself. But he lost that title of being, the head honcho at the organization.
The blurred lines is just the nature of the business.
Yeah,
it seems like it thrives off of that. Taking those storylines and blending it with reality. I'm thinking back to this interview with John Stossel.
Oh.
When he went behind the scenes and he was asking if wrestling was real or fake. Because back in the day, they used to pretend that the storylines were real.
I mean, they still do.
but now it's like a wink, you know.
Nobody asks.
Like it's a little bit of a
like we beat that dead horse. Like stop asking.
Well, no, I think people say it out loud too. Like we know, but it's so potent that it doesn't matter that we know that there's an element of scripting around it. It's like with reality TV.
Yeah.
We know that there's an element of planning and scripting, but I think what made it more interesting is we don't know what's scripted and what's not all the time.
Exactly.
And so those blurred lines make for an intriguing show. Like I was watching Dexter. It was Dexter Original Sin.
The new one.
It was like the last new. They came out with 2 back to back.
Oh, okay.
But this was one where it was a prequel to the Dexter series when he was coming out.
Young, yep.
And we know how the Dexter story ends, or at least where it goes based off the prequel, but there's still something fascinating about how they get there.
Exactly.
It's also with the Game of Thrones and the prequel that they had there. We know where it leads to.
And how it ends, kind of.
Right. But we don't know how it happened.
And that's still interesting enough for people to watch.
Right. Because I think that there's things to learn when you see the how things played out.
Yeah, and with WWE, even today, they don't tell you what the end is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
They'll leave you hanging, and then they try and throw curveballs in there.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes a good story.
And I think the wrestlers also don't know how it's going to end. I know that, or how they're going to get there. I'm thinking of an excerpt, and I think it was the first WrestleMania. It might have been, or it might have been another one, but Hulk Hogan was talking about how he was wrestling Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant had a bad back at the time, but
his whole life, yeah.
and I think Hulk Hogan was the babyface, and so he was supposed to win, but he didn't know how it was going to happen, and Andre the Giant wasn't telling him.
Yeah.
And so he kicked out of a couple pins early on, and then Hulk Hogan, R.I.P., hearing him talk about it was like the last time he was down, he was like, oh, this is how I'm about to win. Okay. And so that element of surprise is space enough for us to feel like this is still worth my time. This is still intriguing. And again, we haven't really even gotten into how this applies to
business and stuff. Cause like, that's a great lesson right there, is like being able to be to improv kind of like at will. You know, stuff's not always going to be scripted, especially in business, the way that you want it to go, or the way that, you think it should go.
Right.
And so being able to improvise and be light on your feet and adapt to the situation that you're in is what's going to make you successful. And you don't have to know what the end of the story is to be successful in the moment.
It's also how the brain just works, like there's this aspect of the brain that just perceives things as good guy, bad guy. And then there's a decision on the person in that scenario on what role they want to play. Particularly what I'm thinking of is Elon Musk. I'm thinking of Trump.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about the positions that they take in their worlds, their respective worlds. In the interview that I was watching with Triple H, he was talking about how this concept of heat.
Okay.
And it's when a heel or a bad guy or an antagonist is getting a lot of attention. People are really feeding into the storyline or the moves that this person's making.
Yeah.
And then for the babyface, they say that the babyface is getting over. I think that's the right terminology. Okay. And that's when people are really feeding into the babyface. But the thing that they also went on to talk about is how in today's day and age, it's really hard to create a babyface or somebody who everyone loves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's really interesting now. Like Cody Rhodes, the current kind of like superstar in the WWE, and how like that stuff kind of evolves over time. There's just a lot of, I think, good lessons that anyone can learn from watching some of these, like the documentary on Netflix, and some of the other kind of like stories around the WWE, and how Vince kind of made it into the billionaire company that it is today.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a good conversation about that stuff.
Well, why don't we switch over to the super secret?
I think we should, yeah.
And talk a little bit more about applying this stuff to our takeaways, how we might apply it, and go a little bit deeper there.
Yeah. If you guys are looking for that episode or those details, check them out exclusively on Constance.com.
You'll find a link in the description.
Let's go.
Peace out.
Peace.